or prospecting and go into it a little bit with you and tell you how you can expand your business. You know, a lot of us don't realize this when we first come into the business, but this is a business of people. If you've noticed already, at least hopefully, all of your customers and all of your distributors are people, and right? So our objective in expanding our business is exposure. We let people know what we have, and if it interests them, they get involved, either as a customer of ours or as a distributor of ours. If it doesn't interest them, then we go on to somebody else. And a lot of times when we first start, I know when I first started, I thought everybody was going to get in. And so, I didn't have a very big list. I didn't try to make a very big list. I figured, well, you get 6, they get 4, they get 2, and you go direct, you make $1,000 a month. Do that this week. And it didn't work out that way. First off, none of my friends got involved. And none of my relatives got involved when we first got into business. The only people who got involved were people that we didn't know. And I don't know whether it was my friends knew more than they knew about me or what, but for our very first meeting, unknowingly, I was prospecting and contacting people, inviting them to that first meeting with the idea that just in case my friends, there wasn't enough people going to be there that all my friends were going to get involved, I was going to have a few extras. And so I invited some people during the day. And it was really interesting because that was easy. Nobody told me how to do it. Nobody even told me what it was. And, our first distributors got into business, and they were people we didn't know. And many of you in this room are represented from people that we didn't know before the business that we contacted. The interesting thing that happened was after we got started, and then I added more people to the list, and we showed all those people the plan, and I got to the point again where I needed to contact or prospect, I was afraid of it. Because now I had all the training, and I'd listened to all the tapes concerning prospecting and contacting, and I thought, all right, this is really going to be tough. And it was something that I'd done my whole life. We make things complicated, and I think that's the biggest difficulty we have in this business. Is the business is very simple, and we complicate it all the time. And so tonight I'm going to try to uncomplicate it a little bit for you, and just give you some basics of what you're doing when you're going out to add people to your list. Now, I hope that all of you started with a written list, and if you haven't, I recommend that you first go back to that, because the average person knows somewhere between 200 and 1,000 people. Now, obviously, they're not all friends and relatives. Some of them are acquaintances, people we've worked with in the past, or old neighbors, people we went to high school with, went into the service with, college with. There's a lot of people we've had contact with, and we've had conversations with, and we know them, or we used to know them, and so they all belong on that list. Because you're already one step ahead. You already know who they are. And so I recommend to you, if you haven't done this already, to take and sit down, especially husband and wives, because wives, a lot of times we find that the guys use up all their names and the wives haven't used any of their names yet, and sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes a big portion of our list is at a distance, and we have to build our business to a profitable level so we can reinvest some of that money to go those distances. And that's what I did with, our New York organization, some of the organizations that we've developed at a distance. So after you've gone through your initial list, then you're ready to start prospecting. Now, if some of you haven't gotten through the list yet, you might as well start now because you're going to get to it. And this is right here is what makes the difference between whether you will go to diamond and double and triple and crown. Very few people, and as a matter of fact, I only know of one off the top of my head, have made diamond without making any contacts, without meeting any new people. And that was the Hawkinses up in Minnesota. And they sponsored 6 of their friends, and all 6 went direct. That dirty rat, I couldn't believe that happened. All right? I wasn't fair. So, but the rest of us all going to have to do it the, I don't know if I want to say the hard way or not. We're going to have to do it a different way. We're going to have to meet some new people. And that's what's exciting about this. You think about it for a second. If you're just limited to your list, and you have a bunch of unfriendly friends or unambitious friends that aren't interested in getting ahead, you're in deep trouble. Okay? You can be as ambitious as you want to be, but if all of your friends are not, you're going to have to meet new friends. And so I think that one of the biggest things that we can do at this point is just come to the realization that we are going to have to meet new people. Now, let's take a look at it. How many people here know somebody today they didn't know 2 years ago? Anybody? Okay, good. So you've been contacting already, so I can throw that page away. No. Basically, let's take on a few things. Meeting somebody or just talking with somebody, conversing with somebody is no big deal. We do it all the time. I'll give you a couple of things that will give you an edge. First off, I continuously smile with people. I just put on a smile, and it was interesting because we just came in the door, and there was a gentleman who was coming in. He had his hands full, and I yelled ahead because we were behind him. I said, "I'll get that." And I opened up the door, and I held the door, and I don't know, 4 or 5 people walked through, and Dale said something about I was the highest paid doorman he'd ever seen. And actually, I do that all the time. I will go out of my way to make contact with people. Right? Very rarely will people come to me. I always put on a smile. I'm always pleasant, and that will attract people. You want to attract people to you. If you're constantly with a frown and kind of a putting on an ugly face, people are not going to come to you. You want to smile, and the next thing you want to put into your nature. And this is going to take a little bit of practice because we don't do this very often. Is I make eye contact with every single person I can. I love to make eye contact. I might not ever say a word to them. I might only see them once in my life, but when they see me, they're going to see me with a smile, and they're going to see me looking at their eyes. And again, that attracts people. You do that. If you'll smile at somebody and look at them, you might be walking through the mall or walking down the street or standing on line somewhere, and the person turns around and by accident looks at you, and if you've got a smile and you're looking right back at them, they don't know what to do with that. All right? And you'd be surprised how many people say, "Hi." Like, should I know you? Because people who don't know them don't smile at them. So you're already making a friend through your smile and your eye contact. The next thing that you do in making new friends is to have a concern for other people. Right? And let me see if I can explain this to you. I'm constantly trying to do something. I'm a servant. And I don't care how much money I make, I'll always be a servant. Because, you see, that's what makes the money in the first place. People who serve are the ones who make the money. And so when I'm looking at people, I'm looking to see any way that I can help them. Open up a door, help them carry something. There wasn't too long ago, I was at a hotel, and there was a family that checked in, and they had to go back outside, and you could tell they were really apprehensive. And I was just sitting there in the hotel, and they kind of were looking around. They didn't want to carry all their bags back outside to come back in again, but they were afraid to leave the bags there because there was nobody around. And I just looked up at them and smiled, made eye contact. I said, "Hi." And they turned around at me, and I said, "Why don't you just leave your bags right here? I'll take care of them." All right? Now, then they looked at each other and then looked back at me, and I still smiled, looking right at them. So they said, "Yeah, okay," and they went outside and they came back, and the comment to them was they couldn't believe in a city that somebody would be willing to step aside and do something like that, or offer a helping hand. And they said, when we went outside, we were sure the bags weren't going to be there when we got back. Okay? Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with my dark complexion or not, but But right away they were I asked them what they were doing in town, and it was easy. From that point on, they were very receptive. They wanted to tell me all about their vacation and where they'd been, and so I'm always looking to be a servant. I'm always looking to help somebody. Whether it be to if I can off the top of my head I can't think of all the different things you can do, but you're constantly looking to help somebody else. The last thing that you want to have in there is you're always looking for good in people. Okay, and this is something that sometimes will take a little bit of extra observation, because some people you think, my goodness, I can't think of anything that could be good about this person. I think people used to look at me that way, but I'm always looking for good in people. I'm always looking for something that is outstanding about them that I can comment on. Very often I'll look at people's clothes. And if I see something I like in their clothes, I'll make mention of it. Total stranger. I might be walking down the street, and I smile, and I make eye contact with somebody, and I notice the guy has a really sharp tie on. And I just stop and I say, "Excuse me, can I ask you where you got that tie? I've been looking for a tie like that for a long time." Okay? And right away the guy says, "Well, that's my wife bought it for me for Christmas." And I had a guy one time say to me that somebody had bought it for him, and that if I give him my name, he'd call me and tell me where they got it. All right? Now, when you go out of your way, people will go out of their way. So you do that. Now, the first step to contacting is just doing those things there. And so I think that if you would take on a practice, and this is what I do, and I recommend it to people all the time, I meet 20 people a day. Now, that doesn't mean I contact them for the business and I have their names. Most of them, I don't even get their names. I meet 20 people a day, and here's how I meet them. Anytime that you talk to somebody and they talk back, that's a meeting. All right? You don't have to get their name or anything like that. So if you say hi and they say hi, that's a meeting. If you say, do you have a match, and they say yes, that's a meeting. If you go to a clothing store and say, do you have a pinstripe suit, and they say yes, that's a meeting. Any time that you've said something and they've said something back, 20 people a day. And I've had people say to me before, well, I work inside, and and I'm not around people, but you know something? You walk by 20 people a day. I don't care if you have to roll down your window at a light and say hi. All right? And you'll find if you will outreach yourself, if you'll step out, they'll step back. Now, this isn't going to help your business. What it's going to do is help you realize that those people out there are not taggers. Okay? They're not going to bite your head off if you say something to them. And very often we get a fear, we get into business, and we've done this before. You've all met new people. You just all raised your hands. You've all met people before. The challenge is now we're in business, and we think that we have to contact them, we have to talk about the business, and we have to get into a role play or something with them. I don't do that. I don't go out to contact. I don't go out and say, I'm going to pounce on somebody, I'm going to meet somebody today. I go out and just live life. And I'm friendly, and I smile, and I make eye contact, and I have a genuine concern for other people, and I'm always looking to be a servant. Now, if you do that, what you do is you take a business card, 3x5 card, or one of your business cards, and every morning before you go to work, you put it in your pocket. All right? And before you go to bed that night, it has 20 marks on it. And you just put a mark every time you've had a meeting with somebody. And, if it comes at 11:30 at night and you have only got 19, go out to a Perkins, sit down at the counter right there, and when the waitress comes up and says, may I help you? You say, thank you. You can go home and go to bed. Okay? That's step one. All right? Now get in the practice of that. You have to set your own goals. Nobody can set those goals for you. But by doing that, you'll find very often that people will start conversations, and you'll find that you'll have no problem once you get used to that 20 days. Now that means you're talking about 140 people a week that you're going to say something to. All right? Now it's amazing how at first that seems so difficult and how really simple it is. It's very easy to do. Okay? And it's just a concentration on your part. You have to, and see, most people go around and they look and they see people. People walk by them every day. If you don't believe me, what you do tomorrow is count everybody you see. All right? Just tomorrow, just count everybody you see. That means in cars, that means walking along the side of the road, that means in a store, that means where you work, every place. Count everybody you see and see how many people you see tomorrow. It'll absolutely amaze you. All right? Now, all I'm saying is taking a small percentage of those people and say something to them. All right? And you'll find that you'll start getting into practice. Now, the step two is you begin to start asking questions. When you ask somebody a question, they will talk about themselves. And I'll tell you right now, do you know who everybody's favorite person is? Themselves. Okay? Now, if you're making statements to people all the time, they're thinking, they might be thinking something else. They might be thinking, oh, well, why is he talking to me? You ask a question and they don't ever think it. All right? And I don't mean complicated questions like, where'd you go to college or anything like that. I mean just something like, nice day, isn't it? Okay? Or ask directions. Ask for help. People also like to be servants. And that's a very simple way to start a conversation. All right? Do I know you? Do you work at such and such? Do you live here in Des Moines or wherever you're at? And you will find by starting to ask people questions, it will lead you more into context. Now, you might not do nothing more than say, nice day, isn't it? The guy goes, yeah, and walks off. Well, that's fine. You've accomplished step two. Step three. And this is where it's going to take a little bit of practice, but it's very simple. Always introduce yourself. All right? Now you're meeting people, you say hi, and some of them you might find that it'll be very simple. Ask a question. You ask a question, it might lead to another question, but before you're done, you say, by the way, my name is Bert Gulick. And if you're planning or not planning, it'll absolutely surprise you. You might not ever think about running for a political office. But the people who run for political offices, they meet people all the time. They want everybody to have their name on the tip of their lips, on the tip of their tongue. Okay? And so the best thing you can do for your success is to let other people know who you are. And so by going around, always introduce yourself to people. And very often, we find that we don't think people are interested. They might not be. But when you say their name, when you tell them your name, they'll remember that name, and they'll hear it again. And when you drive down the street sometime in a Rolls Royce, and somebody says, who is that? And another guy says, well, it's Art Jones. And the guy goes, Art Jones, I met him somewhere, right? Well, he would have never known unless Art had told him his name, right? So you want to make sure you always introduce yourself. The fourth step is learning more about people. Okay? Now, this is where each step is we're getting a little bit further into it. Learning more about people, very often we use 4 letters that spell form, F-O-R-M. You learn more about their family, more about their occupation, F-O, more about their recreation, what they like to do, and more about the M stands for money. Some people say motivation, but more about where they're going, what their plans are. And now, the further down that F-O-R-M you get, the closer you get to M, the more experience you have. It's easy to ask somebody, are you married? Have any kids? That's easy. All right. Occupation, what type of work do you do? That's not too difficult. Recreation gets, well, what do you like to do? You just met this guy. It might seem a little strange at times, but you work into that. It won't be just that question of what do you like to do. It might be you seeing the guy with a canoe on top of his car. You talk to him, do you canoe often? All right? And you're looking for things. You're looking for points of interest. All of these things are a build-up. All right? None of them have anything to do with the business yet. The first 4 steps of learning how to meet and talk to people have nothing to do with this business. From this point on, now we're going to deal with the business. And you need to, first off, realize who you're looking for. You are looking for people who are looking. All right? Very often we think that everybody we talk to has got to be interested in the Amway business. That's not necessarily true. The people that we are talking to will be eligible only if they're looking for something. All right? If somebody is looking for a way to get their clothes cleaner, we have something to offer them. If they could care less, we don't have anything to offer them. All right? If somebody's looking for more money or a better lifestyle or a way to take a vacation or a way to buy a home, we have something to offer them. So if they're not looking, we don't have anything to offer them. If they are, we need to know more about what they're looking for so that we can show them more about what we have to make those things come true. All right? So when you start talking to people and meeting people, and you're going out and you're talking to 20 people a day, you ask them a few questions, you introduce yourself, you find out a little bit more about them in some cases. Now, this isn't everybody. See, if you go out to do this with every single person that you meet, you'll stop tomorrow. You won't even get started. Let's look at actually how you prospect. All right? Now, you've learned how to meet people, and you've learned how to introduce yourself and how to ask questions and how to learn more about people. Now let's look at the different ways of actually prospecting. There are 3 basic methods to prospecting. Number 1 is getting their name and calling them later. Number 2 is what we call a first-person business approach. And number 3 is a third-person business approach. And I'm going to go through each one of them. The first one I don't use personally, and so I can tell you what I've heard other people talk about, and that's just me. You'll find that some of you will use number 1, some will use number 2, some will use number 3, and some will use all of them, or a combination thereof. Now, getting a person's name and calling them later is I think Dale Podasky uses that, don't you? Where's Dale at? You call people later. Just get their name and call them later. Dale Turner uses both, or actually all 3 of them, I think. And basically what this means is you're talking to somebody, and you're just having a conversation. And you get their name, and you learn as much as you can about them. And usually what you do is you write it down right afterwards. All right? Their name, their wife's name, their kid's name, if you learn that, where they work, whatever you've learned about them, you write it down. That day, or the next day, or a couple days later, you phone them. And you say, I can't get you out of my mind. When I talk to you, you really impress me. I own a business, and we're expanding that business right now, and we're looking for some key people. What I'd like to know is if you would be interested in making some more money. Okay? Now, and then you follow up with, I can't promise you anything, but I'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee and explain what I have and at the same time get to know you a little bit better. Right? It's called well, we call it name call later. And that's a real simple way if you like the phone. Now, if you don't like the phone, what you'll find yourself doing is you will find yourself with stacks and stacks of names that you'll never call. Okay? And the first couple days you say to yourself, well, it's too early. Can't call them. I don't want them to, don't want them to think I'm jumping on them. Then after a few more days, you say to yourself, it's too late. They probably forgot me and don't even remember who I am. And I've heard people say that so often. And I've heard Dan Neibauer talk about, he's talked to people before, gotten their name and called them 6 months later. And they remembered it. That's all in how when you're talking to them, the impression that you give. If you're smiling and making eye contact, well, you realize, first off, 95% of the population doesn't do that. So you've already made an impression that most people won't make. By being generally concerned with them and asking questions, asking them questions, you will make yourself more vivid in their minds. So it's never too late to call somebody. If you've got their name and number, you can call them and say, hey, listen, we met, you might not remember this, but we met 10 years ago, and you really impressed me then. I don't know exactly how you would do that phone call, but you see what I'm saying? It's feasible. All right? Let's go to the second one. The second one is the first-person business approach. You're talking with a person, and they somewhere in the conversation, they start talking about either something they're dissatisfied with or something they would like to have. All right? Now, those are the two things we're looking for in a person. If they're totally dissatisfied with their work or their financial situation, and they'll talk about it. I hear people talk about that. It's amazing. Total strangers. I talk to them for 2 minutes, and they're telling me how dissatisfied they are. All right? That's one side. The other side is the person might be saying, well, I'm not doing bad, but I'd love to have a boat. All right? And that might come out of recreation. Or you're talking to somebody and you find out that they're really dissatisfied. They like their work, but they're really dissatisfied with their income. Okay? Or they'd like to have more income. So this is what you're listening for. Now, when somebody brings that up, bring it out of them. All right? Ask them questions. Don't make statements. Don't say you're in a rut. Okay? Boy, I bet you really hate this job. Right away, they'll defend it because the person's interest is themselves. What I do is like when I might be in a store and I'm talking to a guy and I say, boy, I can tell you really enjoy your work. And he says, yeah. I said, they must pay you real well. And then when I say that to him, he does one of these things, looks to both sides and says, are you kidding me? It's amazing how many people say that. I do that to waitresses all the time, and I say, boy, you're running around here. You must really enjoy your work. Now, if they say yes to that, I say, I bet you really make some good money here, too. And I haven't had one say yet. I have never had one say, yes, I make really good money. They always say, are you kidding me? Or, you must not know very much about waitresses or whatever. And so that starts the conversation, all right? Well, I'm looking, and so my next thing is when a person's talking, either they're dissatisfied or they're looking for more, my question to them is, does this mean you're looking? All right? Does this mean you're looking? And a person might say, yeah. Or ask me, well, what do you mean? Or they'll come, the only thing I'm not looking for is no, I'm not looking. All right? If a person says, no, I'm not looking, then I can just go on from there. I say, I say, great. And I say, well, listen, I got to go and take off. If the person says, yeah, I'm looking, I'm always looking. All right? Then I say to them, well, does that mean that you would consider diversifying and have a second or third income? And if they say yes to that, I say, well, I own a business, and I'm expanding that business right now, and I'm looking for some key people. Maybe you and I ought to sit down over a cup of coffee and go over some ideas, and at the same time, maybe I can get to know you a little bit better. All right? The guy says, well, what's it all about? I say, that's why we're going to sit down over a cup of coffee. All right? Person asks questions, I say, and I always do this. Now, watch me carefully. I'm talking to a person. I usually have a very comfortable stance, and a person comes at me and asks a question. All right? Like, oh, what is it? I take a step back, and I say, wait a second. All right? Put 1 foot back, and I put my hand up. I say, wait a second. I can't guarantee you anything, so there's no sense us getting into it now. I'll tell you what. Why don't you give me your name and number, and I'll fit you into my schedule. I'll give you a call, and we'll sit down. I'll explain what I have, and I keep my hand up the whole time. I'll explain what I have, and if you qualify, then maybe we can do business together. All right? So whenever somebody asks you a question, step back and put your hand up. All right? Hold it. And you'll find that they go, they're coming forward, and you say, hey, that's far enough. All right? I don't know if you qualify yet or not. Let's not get too carried away here. I didn't say you could ask a question. All right? And this is posture. You have got the cookie. You have got the way that they can make the money. They've just expressed to you that they want it. So you're going to do it on your terms. That would be in anything that you do. So in a first person, you're talking to a person, you bring up your business. Now, how many of you have business cards with your business on it? Those of you that don't, I recommend that you get with your sponsor, your upline direct tonight before you leave. Sit down with them, figure out a name for your business. If you already have a name, draw it out a little bit so you can see what your business card is going to look like. And tomorrow, do not procrastinate, tomorrow get your business cards made. All right? They're very inexpensive. I don't know, you get 500 of them is usually what people get. That'll last you until at least 1984. Unless you're really good, then you can get 1,000. All right? But get your business cards. When people ask for your business, I always hand them a business card. It's really kind of a challenge. Well, I don't always. One contact I made just recently over at Clearwater Beach, there was a lady, Bump and I were over counseling, and there was a lady, we were talking to her, and and we got to talking about the business and everything, and she decided she wanted to see the plan, and I only had a bathing suit on. And so I went back to the car, and I didn't have a business card. I looked all over the car, couldn't find a business card. So I had to give her, I don't remember what it was. I think it was an offering envelope, but with my name and phone number on it, and had to rip it in half and get her name and phone number. But if that's going to be, it's going to be. But it would have been a lot better if she asked for my business card, and then I had to hand her an offering envelope. You do whatever you got to do. It's more professional and it's better if you have the business card. I thought at the time, I teach this all the time. I can't believe I'm caught without a business card. Anyway, you have your business card. You always hand them two. One for them to keep, one for them to put their name and their phone number on. All right? If they're writing it, they're saying, I'm giving this to you. If you're taking it, it's almost a solicitation. Give me your name and phone number. All right? I say, put your name and phone number on there. If you're really interested in getting ahead, put your name and phone number on there. When my schedule opens up, I'll give you a phone call. Right? And that's the first-person business approach. The third type of approach is called a third-person business approach. And it's a little bit different. I'm talking to somebody, and usually with this, I'm looking, and it's very simple to get into this. This is probably the simplest contact, at least it is for me, because I'll be talking to somebody, and I'll be looking to find out their occupation or where they live. I key off those two things. After I've introduced myself and they've introduced themselves, or in that conversation someplace, I find out that they work, that they're an engineer. Okay? And I say, oh, really? I said, this is exciting. Maybe you can help me out. You see, I'm in business for myself. I own International Business Services, and I'm looking for an engineer. You wouldn't happen to know one that would like to make some good money, would you? Okay? I don't care what his occupation is. I'm looking for one of those. All right? Is there anybody in the room that doesn't want an engineer in their group? No. Anybody in the room that doesn't want a dog catcher in their group? Anybody in the room that doesn't want a Indian chief in their group? Okay? I don't make any difference what their occupation is. I want one. All right? And I'd like to get them to direct, so then I can find another Indian chief and say, listen, we already got an Indian chief that's direct, so I know you can do it. Okay? So I'm always looking. I'm looking for one person from at least one person from every occupation. I'm looking for one person from every single town in America. And when I've got that done, then I'll start working in other places. But so I might be talking to somebody, and we'll have a little conversation, and I'll look for signs. You've got to really be observant. All right. I might look down at his license plate and find out this license plate says Illinois. I says, are you from Illinois? I say, yeah. Well, what part of Illinois are you from? And it'll say, Galesburg. I said, really? Galesburg? I said, well, that's really a coincidence. I'm expanding my business to Galesburg. You wouldn't happen to know somebody down there that's, lived there for a while that would like to make some good money, would you? Okay? Now, the purpose behind a third-person approach is it's very simple. You're talking past the person. You're not talking to that person. So if he says, no, I don't know anybody, no problem. All right? And what you find is you find somebody who's ambitious that's looking and will pick up on it. I've asked people before, do you know somebody that has your occupation or that lives in your area, they'd like to make some really good money? And the guy goes, geez, no, I can't think of anybody who wants to make money.